Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing today, Jared?
I feel very blessed, my friend. Blessed that we're back here together. Blessed that you're wearing that nice fancy shirt.
Thank you very much.
Looks good. Short sleeves, though. It's a little chilly for short sleeves.
I got the jacket that goes over, you know.
Yeah.
It gets hot in this building sometimes to where the hoodie sometimes is too much in here.
Yeah, you got an old school building that seems to not regulate very well temperature-wise.
And a couple ghosts as well. This is a haunted building, so I got a couple ghost pals as well.
So the ghosts prefer short sleeves or long sleeves?
You know, I don't think they care.
They don't?
I don't think
They just got a job to do regardless?
They got their same routine, man. Every afternoon I'll hear some weird
just talking to you.
Yeah, sending messages.
Very cool. Well, I can tell you that this episode is going to be good because I just got back from a long weekend with family in the middle of basically nowhere, working on some projects where nothing went right.
Oh, man, one of those, huh?
Yeah, literally nothing went right, from heaters working to freezing cold to just everything. So,
and we all know you love the cold.
Dude, I freaking hate the cold. But I'm getting better. Actually, I don't hate it. I take it back. I don't hate the cold. I'm learning to be one with the cold because cold is just a season like grief, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, and everything else. So I'm getting better at it. But, yeah, I mean, when you're cold, it's hard to do much else other than think about trying to get warm.
Yeah, for sure.
At least, like, if you're hot, you take your coat off, you still function. But if you're freezing, it's a little different. So, But, yeah, it was one of those things where it was so bad that it was actually a blessing because you learned some stuff.
Yeah, what'd you learn?
I need backups for the backups, especially if we're going to be out in the middle of nowhere as much as Andrea would like to be. We got to have systems to replace the system in case it goes down.
Oh, wow.
And then I also learned, this is it's off grid, so it's completely self-contained. So just understanding realistically how much I take electricity for granted. Like right now, if we were cold, we could plug that space heater in. Do you have any idea how many watts that thing will take to get going?
100 watts maybe?
Crazy. See, I would never have known either. I plugged this little tiny space heater in because our heater didn't work. Plugged it in. Within an hour, it had drained our whole solar system.
Whoa.
2 of them because they're 1,500 watts.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of watts.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. And I'm not the big electrician, but yeah, so it's interesting learning, like, okay, if I plug this in, this is how much solar I need to be getting back in to make it run. Otherwise, it's straight off the batteries, and this is how long my batteries run. And there's nothing worse than having your heat run out in the middle of the night when it's 20 degrees.
Huh.
And you're like, well,
it sounds like we got some fodder.
We got some snuggling to do.
Yeah, jeez. Fodder for a future episode, too.
But
the
yeah,
purpose of preparation or something.
Preparation and just the convenience we have, dude, where you don't, you don't even think twice. You come in flipping a switch, the lights work, your heater's on, you get right to work.
Running water, hot water.
Whereas up there, like, okay, yeah, just even hot water. Okay, we got to turn on a hot water heater. Okay, so how much is that? Where are we at in the day? Is the sun providing? Are we taking in sun, or is it already past that and now we're using batteries? It's just
blessings on blessings.
Yeah, some of them, like we've talked about, some of the most valuable lessons come with some pain.
Oh, yeah.
And spending a night with no heat, freezing cold, was painful enough for me to really learn my solar system.
Dang. So you had to sleep in freezing cold, huh?
Yeah, I think the temperature outside was like 26.
Ooh.
So inside, maybe
60s?
No? No,
colder
dude.
than that?
40s, maybe?
You had to blanket up, huh? That's
Blanket,
cold, man.
Sleeping bag, cuddles.
When my thermostat's in the 60s, I'm like, grr. It's cold.
Oh, no, we were nowhere. 60 would have been balmy compared to what we were facing. But, yeah, it's good, man. So we're back. We survived it. We learned some valuable lessons. And now we get to talk this week about the purpose of family.
Yes.
Which I think is a great time coming up, Christmas time and lots of family get-togethers. And ironically, you a lot of times hear people talk about how much they dread having to go hang out with family this time of year.
Yeah.
So why do you, Ali, think that people always talk about how important family is and that blood's thicker than water and then that kind of conventional thinking.
Yeah, I think that it comes back to nature. You know, you look at a mother of any species and she nurtures her young, she takes care of that, she's willing to fight, she's willing to die for her family. And I think that's what happens. I'm not a mother, I don't know how it feels to be a mother, but there's this motherly instinct. And I think that families are built around that, the mother, the mom who brings up a family. And they always say there's nothing like a mother's unconditional love. So I think that people feel this, and just everything in our society has been built upon the framework of a family, a mother, father, and children. Things in scripture, there's always been this framework of those are your people that you stick with, that you do anything for, that you build up your tribe with. So I think that we're kind of born just innately knowing that, hey, this is my mom and dad. These are the people that take care of me. And then, of course, your relatives in the family, you're exposed to them the most out of anyone. This is a complex topic, though. We can get deep into a lot of things.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with some of that.
So what do you think?
Well, I think people say family is the most important because it's the baseline for what every human starts with, is a minimal family. Mm-hmm. If you do nothing else in your life, you have this minimal family, right? If you don't make any other friends, you have no other acquaintances, this is a small group that is always there. Now, what's that look like for a lot of people? Not everybody's blessed with a mom and a dad in the household, and not everybody's blessed with a family that cohesively works together. So it's different, but it's the same as the baseline. You can always go back to, like you said, your mom, your dad. Like, you always have that little group. But I don't know that it's not the most important, to be honest.
You don't know if it's the most important thing,
I don't.
Is what you're saying?
I don't think family is the most important. I think aspects of family are important. But for me, as I've aged and through my life, I like to move. I like to branch out. I'm honestly closer to you and to many of what people say are friends mm-hmm. than I am biological family.
Yeah.
Which I think is a whole nother topic, or at least something to think about. Does family have to be biological? And that's where I would say no. Your family are the people you can count on the most, that are always there for you. They're pushing you to believe in yourself, pushing you to become better, not trying to pull you back. And I don't think biology is necessary to be considered family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it really depends on the definition of family that we're using, right? If we're just talking about the traditional definition of somebody that's blood related, yeah, of course, they might not have the definition that you just said of being someone that really supports you and being the best version of yourself, that's going to be there for you during hard times. So what can be more important than family?
For me, I think all your relationships. To me, and how I look at it, is all my relationships are, regardless if you're blood or not, they all bring certain things. And to me, what's more important is relationships that are uplifting and challenging. And, like this last week when nothing went right, I happened to have my wife's family there with me. Mm-hmm. So that's family. And we pitched in and we worked and we learned some lessons, and it wasn't always enjoyable or fun, but it was there. And I think that, to me, that's the big thing, is whoever you consider family should be there to celebrate you on your great days and to pick you up on the days that aren't so good. And I think a lot of times we confuse the word family or even friends with cheerleaders, right? And people are just there to cheer you on, but we don't always need that. Sometimes we need somebody to say, hey, Ali, you need to get your shit together. Like, I haven't seen you in 3 days. What's going on? Right? We need that check. Like you and I were talking about off air, checking in with each other. And I think if you limit it to only your blood family, you're missing out on potentially some great relationships outside of that. Because think about, like, your family is just a lottery. Like, who you're born into is just random. But who you allow into your circle, who you allow to influence you, who you learn from, who you study with, who you give back to, those are your choices.
Right.
And that should be, to me, that's when I think of family now, I don't think of my mom, dad, brother, and sister. Like, obviously, they're family. But my family is so much more now, right? Like, it includes you and many people from the gym and all the police officers, all the other people that I've been able to impact and learn from and grow with throughout my life. That's family.
Yeah.
And to me, when I think of family in that terms, it brings great satisfaction and happiness and like, man, look, we built something. Versus trying to stay isolated to, okay, biologically, this is my family. Well, I didn't pick that. They didn't pick me. Like, it's bigger than that to me.
Yeah. I think it can be a struggle for a lot of people when they have family members that they don't get along with, that don't support them, but you still feel the pressure of being there for them or needing to spend time with them because they are blood family, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're really close. Like, for example, my brother and I are very close. Luckily, we have a very close relationship, and my mother has always been an advocate of being like, hey, all you guys have is each other. Like, you always, you need to love each other, be there for each other, and has always been a really good mom in that sense of really promoting and advocating for my brother and I to have a really close, strong relationship. However, sometimes my mother and I disagree and have some small arguments because she doesn't have the type of relationship that she advocates for my brother and I with her siblings.
Yeah.
2 of her siblings she doesn't really talk to. And when I talk to her about that, she, for at this point in her life, she chooses to not have them in her life. And it can be difficult, when a parent's telling you to do something that they don't do, for you to challenge them or question them, like, hey, well, why don't you try and do this? So for people that may be in there, especially with immediate family, a brother, a mom, because I think naturally, at least in the United States, you're not super close with like all your cousins and all your uncles and all your aunts. We're talking immediate family. What happens if you have a really unsupportive or negative, dad, mom, brother, sister? What do you think is the best, most purposeful way to be in situations like that?
Well, I think first 2 things. Let's go back to your mom's example. Mm-hmm. I completely resonate with what your mom's doing for you and your brother. And I know it from your perspective being in there, it's easy to say, well, that's kind of hypocritical. Mm-hmm. You tell us to do this, but you do that. Mm-hmm. But I've very much done the same thing. And here's why. I have experience in life now that, quite honestly, me and certain people in my family are never going to be close. We just don't enjoy the same things in life. We don't have the same goals. Like, yes, we are blood, but we are never, our paths are distinctly different. But because I've experienced that, like, I've tried to be close and we drifted apart, and then I see the things, I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel like they're missing me. I feel like we've just come to a resolution where our lives are just different. We'll see each other once or twice a year, maybe, and we're good with that. And we've agreed to it, right? It's just an agreement. That's what it is. But I tell my kids, like, I want you to be closer. I want you to depend on each other. Why do I say that? Because if I don't preface that and I don't share, like, hey, here's why I'm not close, but I want you to be closer. While they're gaining the experience to make decisions on will they stay close to their family or not, they need to make that for themselves. But if I don't preface that to try to make sure they're watching for that, and all they see me as distant, then it's easy for them just to say, okay, well, this is how I grew up. This is how it's supposed to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. It could be. You see what I'm saying? So I think what she's doing is kind of what I've done is like, hey, I want you to be close. Now you'll get to a certain age in life where you'll decide, is this relationship worth, do you want to do dinners every week? Do you want to live next door, or do you see each other once a year? But you'll have had experience with each other as adults to make that choice. But if I don't share that, all you're seeing is, well, Dad, your whole life you were kind of out here by yourself and your family was over there. Does that make sense? Because you're gaining experience, so you really don't know the decision-making process. And I don't think people usually distance themselves from family because it's so great. Mm-hmm. I think you usually distance from, like you said, when it's a struggle and when it's not enjoyable and maybe they don't support you or it just isn't fulfilling. Mm-hmm. And you get to a point in your life where you're like, okay, when I was a kid, I had to go see family. If my family said it's time to go visit, even if I didn't like them, I had to go. Mm-hmm. As I got older, if it's time to have this family over for dinner, even if I didn't like them, I had to be there. But now you get to make the choice. And to me, I base it on, okay, what value are they bringing? Just like anybody else. Because your time is your commodity. And it kills me when I hear people like, it's Christmas, I gotta go see this part of my family. Why? Why do that? Why? Because honestly, if you're dreading it, they're probably dreading it. So why is everybody going to get together for something they dread?
Yeah.
Why not just send each other a Christmas card and call it good?
Right.
But see, I think that's where family crosses the line. We're afraid to be honest with them. And we're afraid to just admit, like, hey, dude, we're related, but let's be honest. You and I really don't get along. We really don't care for each other. You don't want me around. I don't want to be there. We're going to see each other every 5 years, maybe. And in the meantime, I'll just watch your social media. You watch mine, we'll call it good. Why are we afraid to say that? Versus being like, fuck, I got to drive. I got to get all my kids in the car, put on a fake face to be happy. Kids, don't listen to so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. Basically, then you're living like Lampoon's Vacation, Christmas Vacation. Mm-hmm. Cousin Eddie. Have you watched that?
It's been a long time.
Dude, come on now. You got to watch that.
Yeah? It's worth
you and Courtney, especially because you guys have these RV dreams.
Yeah, those are on the back burner.
Cousin Eddie shows up in the RV. You got to live that one. So I don't think family's that important. Biological. Mm-hmm. I think who you surround yourself with becomes family, and that's much more important.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The community that you build around yourself is family. And I think that...
Argue me this.
What?
Let me interrupt you real quick. Argue me this. Trials. Our gym.
Yeah.
Has been there more for me and for Ryan during this crazy time when the government wanted our business shut down than almost anybody else I could imagine. And none of them are related to either of us.
Yeah.
Neither of us have any family members in the gym. Yet almost 200 of them have come together to pay their tuition, to fight against rules they don't believe in, to support each other, to go to your fights, to go to my fights. Tell me that's not family?
Definitely family.
That's more family than family.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like, no, you know what I mean? So that's when I look at that, I'm like, this is family. When people will sacrifice themselves to make somebody else better or to help somebody else out.
Yeah.
And I can't, like, for me, my biological family is very seldom like that. And I'm not saying not everybody's like that. Like, clearly there's other families that do similar stuff. But for me, man, the communities I built fill family roles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that because of scripture and culture, honor thy mother and father, lots of cultures, like in the Arabic culture, there's not really any type of concept for like retirement homes, or you're expected to take care of your parents in their old age and give money to your parents when they're old and kind of have them become dependent on you like you once depended on them. And pretty similar with the Hispanic culture as well, to where I think it creates this friction, especially when you don't really get along with certain family and having this need.
Why does it do that again? All right, Go ahead. You're at legit need.
A legitimate need to be there for them, to do something for them, but also deep down knowing as a human, I don't enjoy being around you, or I don't enjoy who you are as a person. That can be really tough.
It could be, but I think a lot of that is because family, it's easy to assume they're always going to be there, whether you're an asshole or not, because they're your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here to tell you I'm not always going to be there. Like, I'm going to bounce. I'm going to go do my own thing. And it might be wrong. Like, you asked earlier, family that doesn't support you. If you read my book, the last chapter is about my dad. We do not have the best relationship. We never have. Mm-hmm. He doesn't see the world the way I do. He doesn't see the possibilities like I see possibilities. And so what happens? I limit how much influence he has. Mm-hmm. And some people be like, oh, you need to mend that. You need to. I don't think so. Like, I think we're okay just being like, yeah, this is what our relationship is.
Yeah, it is.
What's wrong with that? Like, why do I need to be uncomfortable? Why do make him uncomfortable? Like, why do that to each other? If you don't really enjoy it and your lives are going separate paths, just go do your life. I'm not one that holds on to this nostalgia. We've talked about before, like, I'm a big believer that life is seasons. Mm-hmm. And when a season ends and it's time to move to the new season, I'm pretty good at just getting my shit and moving on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I love the attitude you have, man, because I think that you're exactly right. I agree with you. I think that things are seasonal. You be the best son, brother, sibling that you can, but ultimately you have to look out for you and what's best for you.
Well, let's even take that comment. To be the best I can be would bring them great pride. Mm-hmm. Even if we're not super close. Because here's the reality. If I'm super close to them, I will never be the best I can be. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm super close to them, how do I get super close? Well, I pick up the same habits.
Yeah.
And I know the habits they believe in daily are not habits that work for me. Mm-hmm. So even that, right? Like, sometimes I think we're a little confused on that. Okay, well, I got to be around family and I got to do what family does. But you don't. Yeah. Because truly, to make them the most proud of me, I need to go out and do my stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And even if it means we don't have Christmas together for the last 21 years. Mm-hmm. So what? They're probably going to be more proud of me being like, wow, look what my brother or my son's doing. Mm-hmm. Where I wouldn't do it if I was in that circle. And that's where I think, what episode was it? Like, taking inventory of relationships or your circle of 5. That was like one of our first ones. Yeah. We talked about who is in your circle, and just because they've been there at some point in your life doesn't mean they should always stay there. Yeah. And that should be a constant evolution process of who's influencing me, who's moving me forward, who's helping me, who am I learning from, who am I teaching, and not just, because they were there when I was 6, they gotta be there forever. Yeah. That prevents growth.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I'm in an interesting situation right now, Jared, and community. I kind of want to share this. I think I mentioned it earlier in an episode. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. He got the surgery. It's progressed to stage 3, and next week he's going to be starting chemo. And I love my dad, but sometimes I cannot stand him. Yeah. Sometimes, like, if I spend more than a couple days with him, he can make my blood boil. He can really irritate me to where I'm like, I got to get out of here. He's just a very high energy, high strung type of person. And, now as a man and as an adult, he still tries to treat me like a little boy. And it's like, I can't, I can only take so much. Right. Yeah. But in this situation, I'm going to be going down there and meeting with his doctors before he starts the chemo. And I'm going to be spending a full week with him, which I'm looking forward to a little bit, but I'm also a little bit nervous about it too, because I have, I don't spend that much time with my father for a reason. I'll always love him, but this has put me in an interesting situation that I'm going to really be reflecting on the purpose of family. Because at the end of the day, if he wasn't my father, I wouldn't have a relationship with this man, Yeah,
so I would caution you on 2 things. One, don't put a lot of weight on that last statement. If he wasn't your father, you wouldn't have a relationship. Because you could expend that infinitely. If you hadn't gone to that sweat lodge and almost died, Courtney wouldn't be your girlfriend. If you hadn't moved to Fort Collins to pursue cannabis and stumbled into trials, I wouldn't be your coach. We wouldn't have a pot. You know what I mean? Like, you can expand that. So, yes. But then I also want to give you credit. And this is where I think, even for me, you have to allow the space for family. Is that just because you haven't been close doesn't mean something won't change in life and you become close.
Right.
Right? So you weren't close with your dad for a while pre-cancer. But when I came in today, the first 10 minutes of our conversation was about all the prep work you've done to help your dad beat cancer. The meditation plans, the Islam, the 5 prayers a day, the foods, the cannabises, the exercise, all. So what this moment you guys are going to share may change your relationship forever. And we always have to be open that just like we said, if somebody's not supporting you, maybe you move them out of your circle. You also say, okay, now it's my turn to support them. Let me bring them back into my circle.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? So just because your relationship hasn't been what you thought it might be up till now does not mean it can't change. And even for the same for me, like I see my dad maybe once a year for lunch. But there may come a point in time where he needs me and I'll be there. And maybe that changes our relationship for the last 20 years of his life, last 15 years. And we always have to be open to, if we're going to push people out of our circle, if it's not working, we can always bring them back and influence their circles. So I applaud you, right? Because you're going to go down there, you're going to make his life better. And we don't know what this fight's going to be like for him. But here's what we know, is that it's going to be better for him with you coaching him and you leading him and you sharing in it. And your relationship is going to evolve from this. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's the power of relationships. That's the power of us owning the relationships in our life and not just carte blanche saying, okay, this person occupies all this space forever, because your dad hasn't occupied a huge space in your life lately.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe start next week he will, because that's a different season in his life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting for me because people in my close circle that I've shared this with of like, yeah, I'm going down there and, I'm going to spend a full week there. Like, oh, man, like you're a great son, or you're such a good son. And for me, even though my dad and I haven't had the best relationship, we've had a good relationship. We talk on the phone and I'll see him maybe once, twice a year. But I kind of feel like, well, yeah, like this is a fight of his life. If he loses, he dies. He has to win this fight, and I'm his son. So I guess for me, it kind of automatically feels like this is my duty, my obligation.
I think it's honorable you feel that, but I also say that all this time you've been preparing for your own fights. In reality, maybe you weren't. Maybe you were preparing to share those experiences with somebody whose fight's bigger than yours. Mm-hmm. Right? You never know. And that's when we're always open to learning, when we're open to influencing each other and looking for the good and the opportunities, times like this arise where you're needed more than ever.
Yeah. What's funny too, Jared, is there's no way I could find a better analogy, especially for him, than fighting for the cancer. I mean, he's born from violence. He's a Palestinian refugee that was born in war, an immigrant from Lebanon. Like that's what he's always known. Yeah. So me telling him like, Pop, like this is the fight of your life, and you have to win. Yeah. And there's so many little bad habits that he has. Doesn't exercise, smokes 2-3 packs of Marlboro Reds a day, eats just straight beef all the time. Like red meat, which isn't very good for cancer. He's always stressed out, high-strung, yelling and shit. And I feel that when I tell him, like, hey, we got to hit the prayers, we got to hit the diet, you got to get off the cigarettes, I explain it to him like this is just like what I'm doing when I'm training for a fight. I got to do everything right. My diet, my sleep, my everything. And you have to have a routine structure each day so all that just doesn't go by the wayside. And it's, I'm thinking it's going to resonate with him. So I'm going to go down to Houston. If not, you give it your shot. Yeah.
He still has to say in how he approaches this. But, yeah, the fact is you're putting it on the table that you're there to corner him, to coach him, and lead him through it. It's up to him to take advantage of that and to maximize it. But I also want to go back to something we said about family that doesn't support you, or maybe you're not that close with. I don't think you should feel sorry for yourself, right? Like if you watch these TV shows and they have this perfect family and mom and dad and everybody, blah, 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 and you don't feel sorry for yourself. And here's why I say that. Much of my life and the things I've done and the things I haven't done are based on things that happened around me growing up that I didn't agree with, that I want to be anything like, that you could say, okay, well, that's not a good family. That's a bad family. Or, oh, that's a dysfunctional family. It could have been all those things. But don't dismiss learning what you don't want to become is just as impactful as learning what you want to become, or learning what I don't want to do to other people, or what I don't want to have happen to me. So I put up barriers and I create skills so that cannot happen to me. That's equally important. I think sometimes we have this fallacy of, oh, I don't come from a good family. My family's not this. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Like, nobody chooses their family. Not one person on earth gets to choose their family. So then the real lesson is we make the lessons we learn from our family what we make of them, good and bad. And I would argue that many times what you'd call the bad or the negative type lessons, or what I don't want to become lessons, are oftentimes more important than the good ones.
Man, that's good.
So give them credit, right? Like, look at that and be like, okay, I may not agree with you on this, but I learned from you. And I thank you for teaching me. By watching you go that way, I made sure I wanted to go this way, but I learned it from you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the purpose of family too, is it's not always supposed to be roses and sweets and the easy path. Sometimes you're going to learn the tough lessons from those around you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That's a huge point there of sometimes in family, it can be just as important, if not more important, to learn the lessons of what you don't want to do, what you don't want to be like. And we do. I mean, I'm guilty of this too, for whatever reason, of almost feeling like sadness or pity for myself or for someone else that says like, oh, well, I'm not close with, I don't talk to my mom, or I don't talk to my dad, or I don't talk to my sibling. But, talking this through, I'm going to try and reframe that and not have that pity and sadness for people.
Yeah, and you decide for yourself what emotion you assign to it. But for me, if somebody doesn't talk to their family just because they're far away, I would say like, well, you probably should. But if you come to me like, how often do you talk to this person in your life? I'm like, yeah, once a year, and we're both good with it. Then there's no reason to spend time being sad about it. Like, it is what it is. Yeah. And it's become that through experiences.
I think one thing that you can, or that I can kind of feel bad about, for example, last night my barber was telling me about how how her mom went through cancer, and that she helped her get through it, and it was a beautiful story. And she's like, I remember she felt so horrible when her hair started falling out, and she was bald, and she's like, I look like a monster, I'm so hideous. And the daughter shaved her own head to be like her mom, and her mom was like, you didn't have to do that, da, 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 da. She told me like this beautiful story, and her mom beat cancer and was giving me like motivation for my story. And then she's like, oh, I don't talk to my mom anymore, we don't talk. And I was like, what? Yeah. How? Blah, blah. And she's like, well, she tends to blame me for the divorce with my dad, and we just don't talk anymore. And something like that, like I think that sometimes life is too short to hold these grudges, especially if it's blood related family. I think that's just like an extra condition there of, that you share things in common, obviously on a biological level. Yeah. So I think there's a little bit more of an impulse to try and connect in a way to make it work. So I think in situations like that, you should really try. You should really try and reconnect.
That's crazy.
With family on a certain level. But on the contrary, there are going to be some family members that don't support you, that don't see your vision, and I'm with you. I think it's okay to cut out or at least minimize time and interaction with certain family members.
Yeah, I just think, and to me, I don't know if I've always been this way or if it's more recent, but I view relationships all as equal. And when I have a relationship with somebody, either they're like positive, neutral, or negative. And it doesn't matter if you're biologically related to me or not. If you're adding to relationships and you're making people better around you, and when we leave, I'm like, oh, that was a great talk, then you're going to stay in the circle. If it's neutral, I don't know, it's okay, then you stay in your neutral zone. But if you're taken away and your daily habits and what you bring doesn't uplift or make people better, you're not fulfilling your basic obligations, I'm not wasting time with you. Like, I'm not spending time there, because what's going to happen? They could say, well, Jared, you could lift them up. I could. Or what else could happen? They can bring you down. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I'm just not going to put myself in positions where I spend a lot of time and nor emotional energy saying, I wish. I don't wish, dude. Like, and that's one thing. Like, I don't wish for much in life. Because I feel like if I'm saying I wish, then I should replace that with I'm working on.
Yeah.
Right? I wish me and Ali had a good podcast.
Yeah.
Well, so how many people wish they had a good podcast?
Right.
Versus I'm working with Ali to make this a good podcast.
Yeah, wish is not in my vocabulary either.
But so many people I hear them say, I wish I had a better relationship. I wish we'll quit wishing and go work on it.
Right. It's that easy.
Right? Whereas I'm like, hey, dude, this is my relationship with this group of people. I'm good with it.
So how do we bring this full circle, Jared? And thank you for a lot of the insight there. I appreciate this conversation, because I'm definitely having kind of some mixed thoughts and emotions and not knowing what the right thing is. How much do I support? Do I uproot and go over there? So I'm starting out with a week for his first chemo thing, and we'll go from there. So thank you for that. Now tying it full circle, what would you say after our conversation if someone's like, hey, in a sentence or two, what is the purpose of family?
In 2 sentences, I say the purpose of family is to enhance your life and for you to enhance theirs. It's a mutual relationship. Period. And I don't think family has to be biological. I think, quite honestly, many of the people, you yourself included, I would consider like I would die for you family. Mm-hmm. Our bloodlines are nowhere near each other.
Yeah.
Which is even more important, because then we choose to spend our time together.
Yeah.
And I'll even share personally, like I adopted my oldest daughter. Our blood is not the same. Yet, I would do anything for her, and she is as much my family as my biological kids, and nobody will ever break that.
Yeah. Because
it's a choice you make. And I think that's, I guess if I had to sum it up, that would be the family is a choice you make of who you allow to be in your life. Mm. And it doesn't have to be what everybody else says it should be or could be.
Yeah.
And like if you talk to Drianna, she would tell you that at no point was I ever a stepdad, nor was she ever adopted. She's just been my daughter, period. And it's pretty cool when we go into places and people are like, oh, she looks just like you. And you're like,
that's funny.
Yeah. And, I think it's spiritually and energetically, like we're the same because we've raised each other.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's what I think. That was probably longer than 2 sentences.
Maybe a little. I think after our conversation, because honestly, coming into this episode, I was like, where are we going to go with this? That it can go so many different ways. It can be deep, it can be complex. But after speaking, I think that your family is your baseline community that you're going to learn interaction, communication, and many different lessons with. Like my mother, my father, and my brother are all very unique individuals that I've learned a lot of lessons from. And from there, you can go build a bigger family because of the, starting with some of the baseline lessons and learning as you go throughout life.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. And we'd love to hear from you all on what your opinions are on the purpose of family and how you celebrate the Christmas season, Hanukkah season, whatever it is.
Season.
Whatever you're celebrating this time of year. Do you celebrate it with family, away from family? And what are your thoughts on that? And then we also want to wish everybody a very blessed holiday season. We hope you guys are all safe and happy and striving to add more purpose to your life. And if you want to go deeper with our community, we'd love to have you join us on Patreon, where you can personally help support the cause of bringing more purpose to our growing community around the world.
Amen.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.